doing a 2-night bender. Then that 2-night would probably turn into 3 nights. And then I was drinking litres of straight vodka from first thing in the morning. I was a mess. And I didn't care if I was here or not.
Welcome to One for the Road, the podcast for anyone building a life beyond alcohol. Hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Every story shared here might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. That could be you. But let's get into it. Good morning, Alex. Welcome to my podcast, One for the Road. How are you doing on this fine day?
Monday morning, 7:30 in the morning, Dave. We're up, we're at them, and we're ready, aren't we?
We are ready, mate. And I was awake at 5:30, feeling pretty good, to be fair. I had a good night's sleep, and I was reflecting on what life was like possibly 8 years ago when I'd wake up on a Monday and I'd had a complete weekend. We're in my little lock-in in my cottage in Belmont in Surrey, where I would have gone in there a Friday afternoon and come out Monday morning feeling like absolute hell.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Mate, I think I would have still been going at this time on a Monday morning, if I'm brutally honest.
Really?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. And that's the reality of where it takes you, isn't it?
Oh, it's awful. When you think about when we begin and it's all fun and socialising, being with your mates and that, and you end up a lot of the time isolated and full of shame and regret, and it's awful.
Yeah, it's not what starts off as fun, certainly isn't fun by the end, is it? Let's be honest.
No, it isn't, mate. All right, so let's see where it started off. As usual, love to know all about you, mate, and where you grew up and what your childhood was like.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. So one of 3 boys, grew up in a little village called Goose Street in Cheshire. And I guess, looking back, most people would say, a very normal childhood, etc. Having done quite a lot of the inner work on myself and, having delved back into everything, I look back and I can associate that I always had a lack of confidence around my body. I was a little bit chubby as a kid at one point and, I felt sort of insecure. I remember, in my early years of probably 10 to 13, wearing T-shirts in the pool, not wanting to show off my body and, having that. And there was just a few comments that were made by people about my sort of size or about my, weight, etc. And it always just sat with me. And I wasn't even particularly big, but it was just the fact that it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, it's what you feel in your head, and all it took was 2 or 3 comments for me to sort of probably latch on to those and to give them legs and sort of run with them. And I can look back and think that some of my self-confidence, self-doubt, my sort of, not actually, it definitely stemmed from some of that. And it's strange how you never realise it at the time and you never you just brush it all under the carpet. It's only once you've done some deep dives into everything that you can associate things back to small little things that have happened, from many, many years ago. And yeah, I guess, one of 3 went to a normal comp, was a bit of a rogue, I would say. I had 2 older brothers, so I was the 3rd youngest one. And I think my dad did very well, especially my mum, because my dad was away a lot. My mum did well putting up with the 3 boys and all our shenanigans of, taking her car, driving her car, having mopeds, having motorbikes, all the stuff that you always seem to do. And obviously, because I was one of 3 boys and I was the youngest, whatever my brothers were doing, I wanted to do. So I'd sneak into the pub with them from the age of 13 and, I'd obviously be drinking at their parties and, old before my time, shall we say. So, yeah, I guess my probably first drink properly was around the age of 13. But, yeah, I definitely had a taste for it, shall we say. And I look back and I think, back then it was, you drank as much as you could, as quickly as you could. and the person who got the drunkest was the funniest.
Yeah.
And that was the old era. There wasn't any of this social media, and there wasn't any of this pictures or videos of you. It was literally whatever happened, and that was it. There was no evidence of it. So, yeah, I had a good childhood. I was definitely a little bit naughty at times, and I wasn't the academic kid, definitely. I was the people person, and I liked to make everyone laugh, and I liked to be, the bubbly, one that basically was always fun, and it was always a little bit naughty, but also cheeky at the same time. Yeah. And obviously having the two older brothers, it was, you always wanted to be doing what they were doing.
Yeah. It reminds me of my childhood, mate. And when I went to my secondary school, because we moved when I was 12, I think. So I'd start in the second year, which I don't know what that is now, year 8, I think, whatever it is. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
I remember trying to fit in with everyone because I wasn't a fighter. They say I'm a lover, not a fighter. But I hated fighting, but it was a rough school, and we was always going up to Carshalton Boys and waiting on the corner of Welbeck Road, like waiting for them to come out. And I was like shaking in my boots because I'd have a laugh with them. Do you know what I mean? But I wanted to try and fit in. But I was a cheeky chap. I remember tripping a teacher over for a dare, and I got hauled into the headmistress's office, Mrs. Orme. But because I was in all the school plays, she had a little bit of a soft spot for me. And she said to me, what have you done now? And I told her, I said, I slipped. The soles of my shoes were a bit worn out. Because she knew my mum had left. So she was a bit extra caring for me, And because I was in all the school plays and I had a little twinkle in my eye, I got away with it. But I played on it massively.
Yeah, of course, as we do. I remember my very first day of high school, I got into a fight and I got sent up onto the headmaster's corridor, and I was there with your finny of a tie, and as you used to try and be cool. And he came up to me and he went, "Boy, what's your name?" And I went, "Alex." And he went, "Alex what?" And I went, "Clapp." And he went, "Not a bloody another one."
Oh, yeah.
So I think my name was marked from day one.
Reputation from the brother.
Yeah, from my two brothers, yeah.
So and the thing is, in those days as well, because there was no ID, you could go in the pub. If you looked a bit of a bigger lad and that, and you would get served. And I always remember looking at all the grown-ups drinking and think, I want to be like them because they look like real men. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I kind of aspired to that, which is, in hindsight, I think where it encouraged me to be a drinker in a way.
Yeah, because you associated it with, once you were able to go to the pub, then you were it. Yeah. It was like the best thing in the world, wasn't it? And it was like, if you can get in and you can get in early, it's amazing. It's that exciting. So it's different.
How did that progress then, do you think? Because normally in our teen years, we do the clubbing stuff and we'll get a job, wake up in the morning absolutely hanging, and before breakfast, you're already over the hangover. We get over it incredibly quickly when you're young, don't you?
Yeah. And I was definitely, it's easy looking back with hindsight, isn't it? But I look back and I worked and played hard, both to the extreme. Basically I would literally party as hard as I possibly could. But to your point, the bounce back was fine. I remember, being able to, at my peak, 18, 19, be able to go to bed at 5 a.m, get up at 6 and go to work.
Yeah.
And sort of muscle through. And it was definitely party hard and push it to the extreme. But I can look back, and even as early as those, I used to have blackouts. And, not remember stuff and not know. That was from probably 18 onwards, that I was basically using drink, probably I was just pushing the boundaries. I was always one of those that had to push the boundary. Like if my mate had 4, I'd have 7. You know, it was let's see, let's see. And I do sort of recall that even at a young age, I definitely had blackouts and stuff. But yeah, I did all the partying, I did all the clubbing, did all the partying, for many years, and it was fun. It was fun. A lot of it was fun, but there was points in there that I couldn't tell you whether it was fun or not, because there were definitely points in there that basically I blacked out. And, those moments where you have to ring your friends and go, where did we go? Who did we see? What did I say? Did I do anything wrong? Did I do anything, and that anxiety and that dread that used to come with that was pretty bad, actually, because you just didn't have a clue as to what you'd done or where you'd been, or, had you spoken to anybody badly? Had you done anything wrong? And you were sort of trying to piece together the puzzle as to what had happened on the nights out, which is dangerous, isn't it? Definitely.
Did you get a reputation?
I think I definitely had a reputation for for not being the best drinker, definitely. Because I was always the sort of life and soul, but then I would end up, passed out or not knowing what was going on. And I definitely look back now, and I could never be the person who had 3 or 4 and said, that's enough now.
Yeah.
That was never me. It was, with me, I was like Pringles. It was all or nothing. Back then, it was like, basically, if I was having a drink, I would be last man standing, or I'd be passed out somewhere after, basically passing out, from having too much. And I definitely would, I was never, and this is the bizarre thing, isn't it? Because you can feel like you're a good drinker, and you can feel like, you were in control and stuff. And looking back, I was probably never in control. I was never able to just have the few and enjoy it for that. I didn't know every time I had a drink whether I was going to be whether I was going to be able to remember everything.
Yeah.
And that was from a young age, to be fair.
Yeah.
That I would basically get myself into messes. I would basically end up, passed out. I would end up not remembering. I'd end up blacking out. Yeah. And that was a continuing theme, probably from teens through quite a lot of my 20s and everything as well. So it was there, but it was something that you probably just associated as normal.
Yeah.
And I think the era that I grew up in was that drink culture, where it was basically you drunk as much as you could, and you drunk to get drunk, and then basically, you carried on drinking until you couldn't drink anymore. That was the old culture, wasn't it? It wasn't like, where you were just drinking to have fun. It was certainly from my side, I could never just have a few. That wasn't me.
So he'd already got his claws into you at a young age. And I noticed when late 20s, early 30s, like a lot of my mates had settled down and were like easing off it. And I noticed that I wasn't. And that's where the difference happened for me, that I was still the one going down the pub, and I wasn't staying for a couple, then going home. I was staying for a session and then going home, and I in hindsight, I look back, and that's where a lot of people change their relationship with alcohol with responsibilities in their life. And mine was, the more responsibilities I got, the more I sort of fought against them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think definitely the thing that saved me or stopped me from having the potential issues earlier was having my son. So I had my son when I was 25, Marcus, but me and his mum got divorced when he was 18 months. So I had him as a child a lot on my own. And we did like a 50-50, so basically I'd have him 3 or 4 days a week, she'd have him 3 or 4 days a week. And because I had that responsibility, and because I had that, he definitely kept me on the straight and narrow for the 3 or 4 days I had him. But what I will say is the days that I didn't have him, I used to make sure that I'd have a party night and then have a chance, to recover, back before I'd have him again. So I definitely can see that it was my saving grace that, to your point, having that responsibility, having that little person that needed me, kept me basically honest, in the fact that I had to, and that lasted for, a number of years, definitely, I lived two lives effectively. I was, a single dad with him and doing everything with him. And then the nights I didn't have him, I'd party.
Mate, our stories are so similar because I was 30 when I had little George, and I was his, football manager when he was 7. But leading up to that, it was a very similar setup where he would stay with me quite a lot, and I would never ever drink, right? And it was my proof that also that I didn't have a problem. Like, oh well, I can just switch it off and switch it back on again.
Yeah,
But every now and again it would creep back in. Like every now and again. And the older he got, it was like the more, oh, well, I can maybe have a couple of drinks tonight. And, and I'm not proud to say that, but I'm being honest, as everyone knows I am, like I wasn't completely squeaky clean. But I think the point I'm making is that when I didn't have him, it justified me going mad.
Yeah, 100%, because you almost went to yourself, well, I've been a good dad. I've done all this. I've not been out. I've not done everything that everyone else is doing. And you compare yourself to everyone else.
Yeah.
And there's always that FOMO, isn't it? That you're thinking that because your mates are single or they haven't got kids and they're having nights out, they're having the best time ever, and you're sat there with your kids. And it's like, because we're young as well, or we were young when we had them. You're not. I definitely, had Marcus at such a young age that I remember bringing him home from the hospital and I didn't have a clue. I ended up having to ring my mum and say, Mum, you're going to have to come and help. I've got this baby and we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I was that stupid that I didn't go to any antenatal classes. I didn't do anything. And I was just like, oh yeah, we're having a baby. Yeah, that'll be all right. And it's at 25, it was like a real sort of eye opener. It's strange, isn't it, how it all pans out? But 100%, I can associate with you so much in the fact that when I didn't have him, it was the reins were off and it was party time. And then it took me days to then come back round to be ready to, have him again. And it's like, and it was just like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, chalk and cheese, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But so how did the next few years pan out after that?
So I'll be honest, the next few years were pretty similar, for probably the 8 to 10 years of him growing up were very similar in the fact that I had Marcus partied, and that carried on, that pattern just carried on. I was still, when I was sort of drinking and partying and stuff, I was still getting myself into that blackout stages from time to time. So there was still something that was not quite right. Underneath, there was still that old, whether you call it a drinking culture, whether you call it, running away from stuff, whether you call it, I don't know. You could call it anything, but it was still evident looking back now that I was not a good drinker, that I was not a healthy drinker. It wasn't like I was just having a couple of nice pints and, I was getting myself to the point of no return more often than not when I was having a drink. And looking back, that's not a great place to be. But it's easy looking back with reflection and, hindsight, isn't it? At the time, I just thought it was normal. I just thought, as many of us do, that's just normal behaviour. So...
Do you think in the moment, though, there were particular times that you thought, Jesus, I've got to rein it in, or did you just think it was normal?
There was one stage where I knew I was beginning to have too much, and that was when I signed up to do my first white collar boxing match, because I did it for two reasons. One, my mum had just had breast cancer, and I wanted to raise some money. And one of my friends' mums had died from Alzheimer's, so I did it for the two charities. And the second reason was that to get myself off it for a bit. And I had 4 months, totally no booze, no nothing. Everything was like just training, and, you know, I put myself sort of into that. And I did that on purpose because I knew that I basically was teetering on the edge, you know, of basically not being in a good place. Yeah, and I did that on purpose. I made that choice because I knew that I was teetering and not getting into a good place and not being in a, that was probably, I'm trying to think when that was around about when I was about 30, 32, something like that. Yeah, and I think I knew in my own mind that I was doing it for a reason, you know, and it forced me to have 4 months of nothing. I was great. I was training every day. I was drinking juice. I was like not going out. I was feeling fabulous. I was like buoyant. But then as soon as I'd done the fight, I just flipped straight back, and it gave me the freedom and the approval to go, oh, well, you've done it now. You've showed to yourself. You've proved to yourself that you can do it. So now you can just go and do what you want. And it almost had the flip effect, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, well, you've been a good boy for 4 months. Now you can go and do what you want. And, you know, nobody can say that you've got an issue because you've just had 4 months of like doing this. So yeah, it had probably perversely, it had the knock-on effect, the counter effect.
I think psychologically, like, as we say, we can always look back in hindsight, but psychologically, you know, I've had moments like that where I had results from the doctors, and I thought, well, he's going to tell me my liver's fucked. And he said, oh, your cholesterol's high. And it just thought, oh, well, actually, I've got away with it, so I can drink more. Rather than think, oh, I've had lucky escape, I need to look after myself. And I think psychologically, it's the fact I didn't want to stop. And probably the same for you. You know, even though you felt great and you had the fight, the actual truth was you didn't want to live a life without it.
Oh, no, 100%. It was literally, I just did it. I called it a reset, Dave. I called it a reset. And it was like, 1, proving to myself. 2, I wanted to get fit again, and I wanted to feel, you know, good in myself. And probably looking back from my childhood, my sort of body issues and that thing, it was so stimulating for me to get myself into good shape and to feel good and to look good, you know, bizarrely, you know, and it's just down to yourself, isn't it? And how you feel in your own mind. But that sort of boosted me, made me feel okay, if that made sense. Not made me feel great, but made me feel okay. You know, having shredded loads of weight, got myself down to like really good fighting weight, looking good. So it almost, you know, felt like I'd ticked a load of boxes. As soon as the fight was over, it was like, whoosh, straight back, running back to it. And it was, give myself the approval to say.
Yeah, and a reward as well for doing so well, which is counterproductive, isn't it? Because you've done so well, then you're going to trash it all again. And that just shows there was part of you that thought, you know what, I love drinking, because it serves a purpose. And at the time, we don't know what it is. You know, the amount of times that I went back, I yo-yoed, and it might have even been a couple of 3 days where I thought, right, I'm going to go on the straight and narrow, say a Monday when I'd had a heavy weekend. And by Wednesday, you think, I've been good for the last couple of days. Maybe I could have a couple. And then you go, oh, I'll start again Monday. You know, and it always keeps you in that trap. That's why I call it the hamster wheel of doom, where you're just yo-yoing between the two. And I think it's because if you look really deep down, or it could be subconscious, there's a part of you that just doesn't want to not drink. And society makes it that way as well, doesn't it? Because it's, as we know, everywhere you look, all your mates are drinking. It's the done thing. It's the only drug we have to justify not having.
Yeah.
You know, and it's mad. So what happened after that, Alex? Was it like just...
So I guess the real pivotal thing for me was around 8 years ago, I started having some undiagnosed eye problems. So literally, I woke up and I was just having a bit of blurriness, and I went to the opticians and I thought to myself, and just a couple of times, you know, when you just think, oh, and literally, I remember being sat in the opticians about 8 years ago, them doing a check, and they had this new machine. And all of a sudden, they scurried off and they came back and they went, the owner of the practice is coming to have a look. And I was like, it's a bit strange. I went, yeah, okay. And then the owner of the practice came down and said, right, you're going to have to go to the hospital. We're going to send you straight to the hospital. There's something going on in your eyes that isn't right. So this was like, right, okay, great. So off I went to the hospital. And Dave, this started this started something that's been now going on for 8, and it's undiagnosed. So they don't know what's caused it. It's basically, I am an anomaly in the fact that I have got a bit of everything in both eyes. I haven't got just one thing. And I have been to Liverpool, Manchester, London. I've had the top experts in the country all queue up to have a look. I've had eye injections. I've had, and I call it the Magnus Magnuson chair, because obviously I have to make joke of it. So it's like this big black chair that you have to sit in, tip your head back, and then they inject into your eyes. And I've had about 12 injections in each eye. I've had dyes pumped around my body, different coloured dyes. So then afterwards, when you go for a wee, it's luminously green.
Yeah.
I've had 2 MRI scans. I've had brain scans. I've had laser in one of my eyes because they were trying to like repair some of the holes where the fluid was leaking and stuff. You name it. Over the last 8 years, I have had pretty much. I've had gene tests. I've had everything. It's been a challenge, shall we say? But if I go back to, you know, the beginning of it starting, I, being me, had never been sort of beaten by anything in my life. And, you know, I grew up in that a bloke's a bloke and a bloke doesn't talk and a bloke can cope with anything. And, you know, you're not allowed to cry and you're not allowed to show any emotions. And, you know, that was the era that I grew up in. You know, the old fashioned bloke was the era. So I was, you know, having these problems and I didn't have any answer or any reason why it was happening. And it was the unknown. It was the unknown as to all this stuff that was going on, the unknown as to whether I was going to go fully blind, the unknown as to, you know, what's going to happen, the unknown as to, are we going to find a solution? You know, is it going to get worse? When's it going to get worse? It was all the unknowns. And then it was all the having to pretend to be strong, having to not allow myself to cry, having to put this brave face on to every single body else, and having to pretend to the outside world and all my friends and family that I was fine, fine being the perfect word, isn't it? And that I could cope with anything and that nothing bothered me. And, you know, I was making jokes and, you know, being silly about it and pretending that it was nothing. I was walking into lampposts. I was, you know, because so where I'm at now is I've lost 95% sight in my left eye, and they've managed to stabilise my vision in my right eye for the time being. And I'm dead happy with that. I'm dead happy with that because about 4 years ago, it deteriorated in my right eye as well, where I couldn't read emails, I couldn't read texts, and I was actually beginning to get voice recognition stuff on my laptop, on my phone, everything, you know, preparing myself effectively for not being able to see. So, and I guess the other thing that I've got is all my light receptors in both eyes are fucked. And so as soon as it goes a bit dark, I can't see. Like, as soon as it goes dark, I'm like, so, yeah. And I guess I've just been this little boy lost, you know, and, pretending. I was pretending to every single other person that I was okay. And I was running away from any of the emotions, running away from the fear, running away from the having to deal with what was going on. I was just trying to block everything out. And guess what? The easiest and best solution to running away was the bottle.
Yeah, I can really understand, mate. I've known you for a while now and I didn't know this, so I'm really sorry, mate, to hear this. It's bloody awful. And
It's not. But do you know what? I truly believe that whatever challenge we face, and this is me being like very philosophical as I am these days, it actually builds into like a lesson, and teaches you something, and, turns everything. You can always look at things two ways, can't you?
Yeah.
And, bizarrely, I was living my life totally the wrong way. And my beliefs about what a bloke had to be and how you should be was completely wrong. And it was such old fashioned. And I am one of the lucky ones that I have managed to 360 change my entire life, but I've actually managed to change my entire way I am and the way I treat myself and the way I basically look after myself and the way, I have good days, I have bad days, I have, loads of emotions, I cry, I get sad, I get angry, and that's all okay.
yeah,
But before I was like a fucking robot.
yeah. Well, you said it before that you make a big joke out of it because you defer the truth.
Yeah, I was just always running away, using humour to deflect it all.
Yeah.
And and there's been so many, like, and I look back to like walking into lampposts. That happened to me a couple of times. I've walked into fridges at the boxing gym, stuff like that. And it's that when these things happen, it's that, ego, thing where you're like, oh my God, what's everyone else think? Does everyone else think I'm an idiot? And it's like, what happened there? And, it's just like all those things that go in your mind. And it's just a constant challenge.
Yeah.
And the constant test of, so as you can imagine, that all that happened over quite a 4 or 5 year period. And it was, and this is how bloody silly I am, that I took Marcus, my lad, in to watch me have injections to show him how strong I was, to show him that nothing fazed me and that I was, look at me, come and watch me have an injection in my arm.
Yeah, I'm a real man.
I'm a real man. And, as I'm walking out, the blood dripping out of both my eyes after the injections, it's like, look, I don't cry, and I'm like, all the rest of it. And it's like, what the fuck was I?
So you've been sober over 4 years, right? So in the 4 years before that, when this began, was there any point that you thought, I need to change my lifestyle, or was that 4 years just running away from that as well?
So that 4 years got progressively worse, Dave. So what started with this, with a bottle of wine a night. Yeah, started with a bottle of wine. It was just turn off the noise, turn off the, whatever's going on. Let's deal with work. Let's deal with anything you've got to deal with during the day. When you get home and, you've got that quieter time, let's turn off the noise. So let's have a bottle of wine tonight. And that then progressed to a bottle and a half of wine. Then it progressed to 2 bottles of wine. Then it progressed all the way through to 3 bottles of wine. And when you're drinking 3 bottles of wine a night, then you're starting to have some side effects and feel a bit groggy, feel a bit groggy. And then, obviously, I started lying about how much I was drinking and I was hiding. The usual. It's such the same pattern, where you get caught, hiding the drinks around the garden, or, the extra drink. I remember once one of the dogs bringing in a miniature bottle of vodka from the garden, and I was like, "That's not mine."
Someone's thrown it over the fence.
And it's the same. It's the same. That once you get into that thing, It doesn't matter who you are, you manipulate, you lie to yourself, and then those lies just basically spiral, and then you
Yeah,
start lying to everybody else. And it's almost like you believe it in your own head. You know, you justify it in your own head, going, well, that definitely wasn't me. That
yeah,
definitely
I know,
wasn't me.
I know. It's madness, one of the things I used to do. But also, what I was going to say, when all these specialists were doing all this stuff, did they ever mention your lifestyle?
No, because at that point, before all that, I was in the off and on mode. And then at the beginning of all that, I was probably a bottle of wine a night. And it was more, as it deteriorated, it became worse. And if bizarrely, is this bizarrely or not? I only got my sight stabilized as I fully came into recovery. So it certainly wasn't helping me what I was doing near the end. But let's be honest, the amount I was drinking at the end, I was on a one-way ticket to
Yeah,
not being here. And that's the reality.
yeah.
So I don't guess that when you do that to your body, it's gonna have any good effect anyway, is it?
None of it does. We've got that evidence now. We like.
Yeah.
I think I heard some statistics that if alcohol was brought in now, you were allowed half a glass of wine a year.
Aye. Well, and that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me. It's like ridiculous.
I know. So what was the turning point? Like what point did you think, right, I've got to stop? And what did that look like?
I couldn't stop. I remember going through a stage of trying to control drinking where I'd have, trying to have 3 nights off a week. And I found it really hard to have a night off. Found it really hard to have a night off. And to the point where I got to the point where I couldn't have a night off because, yeah, I'd built up a dependency on it. And that was the point where I didn't accept I had a problem. I just thought it was normal. Had noticed a vast change in me, so I agreed that I'd go into rehab for the first time. But my first stint in rehab was I came back out and I was like, I've had 28 days off. I'm not an alcoholic. I've had 28 days, so I'm not an alcoholic. You know, I'm fine. And, you know, I went straight back to it pretty much. You know, we're inside a month. I was back on the source and, you know, and I picked up exactly where I left off. And if anything, it just progressively got worse. And it did get worse. It did get worse to the point where I was living on my own at that point and being on my own with no responsibility or nobody else there to almost be my handbrake a little bit, you know, whilst you were still sort of lying and manipulating and, you know, once you haven't got any handbrake, it was dangerous. And then I was obviously lying to the family, pretending I was still doing stuff, pretending I was fine, you know, sort of pretending that I was, you know, still doing normal stuff. And I was starting to like, I missed a couple of Marcus's rugby games and that was never heard of for me. And, you know, his mum got involved and spoke to my family and, you know, everybody started realising that actually he's not right. Although I was telling everyone I was fine. And I fought against it. And I went in to my second rehab day and I did a 3-month stint. So I literally stepped outside of the world for 3 months. And that's when I did all my inner child work. I did like so much work on myself. But this is the ironic thing that I convinced myself that because I'd done all the work on myself, that alcohol wasn't the problem, I was the problem. And because I'd done all the work on myself and fixed myself, that I was fine again. So 3 months in rehab, got on the plane to come home, and drank 7 bottles of champagne, the mini champagnes, drank 7 of them on the way home after spending fucking 3 months solid of fucking working on myself. And it was like, what the fuck are you doing? And then I floated with being okay, being not okay, being okay, being not okay for a few more months. And then it really got a grip of me then. And at the height of it, and then I started doing some recreational stuff as well, because, the drink wasn't enough to numb everything. Then that made it even worse. Then it meant that I'd be not just doing a night, but I'd be doing a 2-night bender. Then that 2-night would probably turn into 3 nights. And then I was drinking litres of straight vodka from first thing in the morning. I was like, I was a mess. I was a total and utter mess. And I didn't care if I was here or not. And I literally was living an existence, and I was almost beginning to put myself into like really dangerous situations on purpose, not looking to harm myself, but put myself into situations that could be very detrimental to me and my health on purpose. And that's when my family intervened again, and I got sent, or I was getting sent back into the rehab back into another rehab for the 3rd time. And the turning point was then, because I'd been taken to my mum and dad's house because I wasn't allowed to be on my own then, which was right, to be honest, because I was fucking no use on my own at all. And I remember being sat on my mum and dad's drive with my family there, and I was going into my last rehab the next day, and my son was 17 at the time, and we were sat in his car, and he looked at me and went, "Dad, you're 42 years old and you still need your parents."
Wow.
I am 17 and I need you for the rest of my life.
Oh, bless.
And I just looked at him, mate, and my heart, it was almost like, when it just sinks, and you just go, okay. Okay. It was, because like you, I had that little boy that needed me and that kept me, that was my savior, probably my savior from a young age, and I felt like, because he met a girlfriend and he was going out with his mates and he didn't need me anymore. It was almost like, in my mind, I'd switched it off, that he needed me, and that almost like I'd given up.
Yeah.
And as soon as he told me he needed me and I had a purpose again, it was like, I'll do what it takes.
Yeah, you need to step up.
Yeah, I'll do what it takes.
Yeah.
And I went back in the next day, and that was nearly 4 years ago. And, I've just basically, I couldn't do it for myself. I had no self-respect, and I didn't think enough of myself at that time to be able to do it for myself. But I could start the process for him.
Yeah.
Because he meant more to me than anything in the world.
Yeah.
And by hearing the fact that my little boy needed me, I could do it. I could make that first step.
Well, it kind of snaps you out of the bubble you're in, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was just like reality.
Yeah. Smacks you straight in the face. That one line was, "Fuck me.
Yeah.
What am I doing?"
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like, wow, I've got the most precious thing to me in the world telling me that he needs me, that I have nurtured, loved, basically been there for the last 17 years. And he's telling me that he needs me for the rest of his life. And what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, exactly.
On a road to self-destruction and basically killing myself. And it was just like, okay, I'm going to listen, I'm going to learn, I'm going to do as I'm told, I'm going to basically get my head down. Yes, it's not going to be easy at times. Yes, it's going to be a challenge, but there's millions of fucking people who've done it, and there's millions of people who will continue to do it. So I am no different. I just need to basically accept defeat and basically say the only thing I can't do is drink or take drugs.
Yeah.
And
That's it.
yeah, and it's just like,
Non-negotiable.
yeah, and it's just like having a peanut allergy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. If you've got a peanut allergy, you can't eat peanuts.
Yeah.
So I've got a drink and drugs allergy. I can't
You
do
can't
either
have
of
it.
those. I can't have it. Yeah,
And I always say that clears the bandwidth then, because all the time you negotiate with it, it always wins. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's exactly how I framed it as an allergy. I'm allergic to alcohol, so I can't have it, because if I do it, it'll kill me.
yeah.
And I know it sounds simple, and a lot of people would say, well, you know, it's easy for you. But, you know, we all do it our own way. And for me, as soon as I made it a non-negotiable, it gave me the headspace to think of the ways that I could continue to do that on a daily basis. So I used to do it like wake up in the morning, say, right, I will not drink today. Whatever happens today, I will not drink. And when I put my head on the pillow, I will be sober. Yeah. And that was my mantra for months, years, really. But it, you know, otherwise that chatter comes in. Even after a few months, you start thinking, oh, well, maybe, you know, fading effect bias, where you forget how bad it was, and, you know, and you get the odd association with the weather. You know, it could be a sunny day and you're thinking all your mates are down the pub and you could just have one down in the beer garden and you forget all the chaos. You know what I mean? Oh. Non-negotiable, mate. No,
yeah,
not doing it.
Exactly. And to be fair, you know, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I don't have those moments where I go, oh, it'll be nice, you know. And of course, those thoughts and feelings, I can't control a thought or a feeling that comes into my mind. I just can't. But I can choose what I do with them.
Yeah.
And that's all I do. Yesterday I came back from being for food with my mum and dad. I came back and pulled on the drive, and this random thing came into my head going, wonder if I'll ever drink again. And it just came in. Just came in, and I was like, what are you fucking thinking about?
Yeah, it's like a poltergeist, isn't it?
Yeah, it just pops in. It just pops in, and it's like, and I was just like, don't even give it any legs. Don't even don't even like associate with it. Just laugh.
But do you know what? I don't think it's a bad thing, right? Because it's a reminder. It's a reminder that it's still pretty much there. It's like a stalker that hides down an alleyway, and it'll just jump out on you and catch you by surprise, you know. And like, I've had things lately, and it's like, where's that come from? Like, but as you say, we can't help the thought, but we can learn how to manage the thought, right? Yeah. And I actually sit with it for a while and think, God, what would happen if, and it would be absolute carnage. Thank God I'm in a better place in my life. So the whole thing is a learning. But so with your early recovery, did you find that challenging, or was that what Mark has said to you, like kept you on the straight and narrow?
I think it did keep me on the straight and narrow, but yes, it is challenging. I think I always say the hardest thing is stopping. That's like that first period and getting yourself into a good habit, good routine. But it's about finding what works for you as an individual. What, you know, and I made some decisions that I needed change in my life, so I moved areas because I knew that being where I wasn't helping me.
Yeah.
I also knew that I needed to be around people. So I went and volunteered at the local boxing gym in the new area. And that was scary, you know, walking into a brand new boxing gym, the way you've moved areas, you don't know anybody. You just walk in and go, hi, can I come and volunteer? Can I come and help? And it's like, you know, that insecurity.
Yeah.
I made a choice to openly tell all my clients and tell everybody I knew that I was an alcoholic and that I was an addict and that I'd had some issues. And I wrote to all my clients personally because I was like, how do I take the power away from this? Because what I'm going to find really hard is, you know, almost having that daily, oh, do you want to drink? You know, do you want to come to this event? Do you want to do that? Or come on, have a drink. Why don't you have a drink? And I thought, I'm going to face this head on, and I'm going to basically go, I've had some issues, I've had some challenges, and I chose to run away from it all and ultimately became an alcoholic. And by me facing it head on, I got so much support back. I got so many people sharing stories of their vulnerability and their struggles and stuff. And I got so much, by me being brave enough to be vulnerable, it gave other people the freedom to speak back and to connect back. And it was super powerful, but I shit my pants doing it. I have to say, I shit my pants doing it. What's everyone going to think? Oh my God, people are going to judge me. Oh my God, people are going to think this. And I just thought to myself, it's not about anyone else. It's not about anyone else. I have to do what is going to help me. And I have to find, and make these changes that are going to help me. And that might not be right for someone else, but it was right for me. And if it was right for me, then that's the right thing to do.
I love that, mate. Do you know what I mean? I think it's important to find your lane and find what works for you. Do it your way. And by you coming out clean and telling everyone, you'd be surprised how many people hold their hands up when you show vulnerability. And they say, do you know what? I'm so pleased you've written to me because I've had my own problems with it as well. Well done. You're really brave,
Yeah, and I did. I got so much love and support back. It almost shocked me. But it took me being brave to be vulnerable, and by being brave enough to be a little bit vulnerable and actually speak the truth and say, it's superpower. It's a superpower. Because anybody who's struggling or anybody who's not quite feeling right, if you're brave enough to be a little bit vulnerable and share it, you just never know who will connect back with you or what you will get back.
And let's face it, mate, there's a lot of shame wrapped around us with drinking, right? And if you share your story, that can really help the feelings of shame. Yeah. That's what I've found, and this is why communities are so important. And I've had groups over the years, and I've been to one of your Clarity events, which was amazing in Manchester. It's fabulous. And this is what you've done since your sobriety. You've built up communities. And I wonder, before we go, whether you could tell the listeners what you've achieved, because honestly, if you get a bunch of people together that are sober and they're sharing their stories and showing life can be fun, you can go out on a night out without drinking, you can meet people and learn how to manage social anxiety, is so important. So tell us a bit more about that, mate.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, mate, and thank you for saying how much of a great time you had at the event. And I just decided that, and I think it came from Rehab, where I saw all these people having a communal good time together. Because yes, it's heavy during the day and when we're doing the sessions and stuff, but then you put sort of a bunch of people together with no drink, no drugs, no outside world distraction, and you spend a lot of time together. And we actually had a nice time, because you go back to the old ways of basically playing games, or you having to do stuff and, connecting and speaking and being around people. And it made me realize that actually you can have great connection, a great time without drinks and without drugs and without any mind-altering substances. So, yeah, we set off on a mission to do these alcohol-free events, and we've done loads all over the country, having like 400 or 500 people, at some of them at the height. And every single person, we've had thousands of people come to them, and every single person's been like, I had an amazing time. I had a great night. And I'm like that. And I'm not saying to you, don't drink. I'm not saying anything. It's, if you're a good drinker or not. If drink is okay with you or not. But I'm about choice. And it doesn't matter, if you want to drink, you drink. If you want to have a brilliant night out without any alcohol, then let's do it. Let's dance sober. Let's basically play games, connect, let's basically be inspired, have some great conversations, and you can still do anything. and it's all about choice. But then from the night out, that wasn't enough for me then. So we've now built Clarity Circle, which is all about looking after yourself mentally. It's like the piece of the puzzle, because I say everybody's great at looking after themselves physically. Everybody's getting better about what they put into the bodies, you know, in terms of, you know, food, etc. The piece of the puzzle that everybody, in my opinion, still struggles with is the training your brain and the mental side of things. So I have built Clarity Circle, which is basically all about a well-being hub community, which connects you with people that specialize in anything and everything. Anything to do with mental challenges, whether it's menopause, whether it's sleep, whether it's nutrition, whatever it is, anything that, you know, I've got parent coaches on there. I've got sports mental health coaches, you know, I've got anything to do with anything. And if we haven't got it, tell us and we'll find it. But it's also about inspiring people. So we've got free resources that you can take away, that if you're struggling with a bit of anxiety, you can go and try this. If you're struggling with stress, you can go and try this. Anything. We've got a bit of inspiration, learn how other people, real other people, have faced challenges and done it and basically come out the other side. And then if you really are struggling, we've got an expert for everything. And we've also got all these different events that you can go to that aren't centered around drink and drugs, that are all centered around well-being and trying this and trying that. So it's exciting, to be honest, mate. And, you know, what started as a little seed of basically challenging the norm has then grown legs and allowed me to continue to build and shout about anybody and everybody who are doing good things, and also to allow people to have choice.
Yeah.
Because it's, to your point, it's nobody else's business what your recovery is. It's nobody else's business what works for you.
Yeah.
I'm saying, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just giving you a load of choice. And I'm shouting about, shining a light and highlighting amazing people, amazing events, amazing inspirations. Go and have a look. Go and have a look and find what works for you.
Yeah. I think it's so important as well, because, you know, we get so institutionalized in our drinking, right? And we can't see what's the other side, right? And a lot of it is like, what do you do with your time? How do you meet people sober? You know, so many people reach out to me asking me for groups, communities, because they don't know what's out there, right? And connection is so important. You know, and, you know, the thing is, when I went to the one in Manchester, the games side of it really gives you natural dopamine highs. And, you know, it was a really good night. I really enjoyed it. It was like being at a sober wedding, because we're all in big tables. And when you start playing the games, you're not staying on one table in your own little clique. You're mingling together, and there was music and dancing, and it was really great, mate. And I think it's such a good idea, and you should be proud of yourself for what you've achieved there, because I think it's much needed. Before we wrap it up, mate, where can people listening to this who may be interested get the details? Yeah,
so Clarity Group, our website, we're on Instagram, we're on all the normal socials. Yeah.
So it's spelled T-E-E, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And it's clever, isn't it? So it's Clarity, T total. So it's, yeah. But nobody ever notices, you know, it's quite interesting. But you did, obviously.
Yeah, I notice everything, mate.
From one drink into another.
Yeah. But listen, mate, I really appreciate you sharing your story today. And I hope you manage to deal with the eyes, because you've lost, did you say 95% in the left eye? So if you're still working in the boxing, like helping and whatnot, that must be a...
Yeah, but do you know what, mate? And this is the thing. I'm grateful for what I've got. Yeah. You know, I think I was at the end of the road, and I could have gone one way or another. And just like with my eyes, it could have gone one way or another. Yeah. And I've still got, you know, sight in my right eye. And, you know, I'm grateful for that. I'm, grateful to still be here. I'm grateful to be part of my son's, families, friends' lives. And there's always two ways of looking at everything, isn't there? It's not, I don't focus on what I haven't got anymore or compare myself to anyone else. I'm grateful for what I've got. And, that's okay.
Sobriety brings that, mate. I was so, took everything for granted when I was drinking. I was judgmental. I wasn't thoughtful. And now, hopefully I've done 180 where I'm such a different person to what I was, and I appreciate so much more. I appreciate going for a walk in the morning and seeing the little flowers in the ground and, looking at nature, listening to people. It's a completely different world. So if anyone's listening, I hope this episode has inspired you. And thanks a lot for supporting this podcast. Alex, you've been an absolute star, mate. Thanks so much, Dave, for joining me, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Dave. Pleasure as always.